Good evening to everyone and namaskar. Today, of course, सब डरे हुए हैं CBSE बोर्ड से, तो we are of course going to here talk about CBSE boards and of course कितने भी साल हो जाएं टीचर्स को पढ़ाते हुए, the fear is mutual. It is not only the children who are scared as to what is going to come. It is also the teachers. तो एग्जाम सिर्फ बच्चों का नहीं है, हम सबका भी है. Sir, I request you to kindly mute yourself because I think. Thank you so much. So, of course, we are going to talk about today the CBSE sample papers that have been released, examination pattern, because it has undergone a very significant change. What are the key changes in all the papers and what are the teacher? And I have specifically written teachers preparation because हमने बच्चों के से पहले हमने भी बहुत preparation करनी है. So this is what the group is about, that today we are going to talk about as to how together we can make our preparation so that we prepare children very well. And I am Ruchika Sukhija. I am principal at Mahavir Senior Model School, Delhi. So, as I already said, what are the objective of today's session? So first is to understand the new features as to what new has been introduced. Although it has not been introduced all of a sudden, but then also the change we are perceiving, we are finding it to be all of a sudden because we perhaps did not take care of when CBSE was changing it step by step. So please understand that this pattern has been changed step by step. This endeavor was going on for past 3-4 years. And to analyze the changes which has been introduced in the latest sample papers that we have already received, to align, very importantly, our teaching learning strategies with what CBSE expects from us. And to prepare, of course, you are going to go back to your school and you're going to prepare your teachers as well. Of course, we also have to be prepared for the assessment readiness within the classrooms. So first of all, if CBSE has made a change, then why the CBSE has made this change? So first of all, CBSE moving strongly towards competency-based education. As I said earlier, the change is step by step. So CBSE started with 10% competency-based questions, then 20%, and now it is 50%. This change is gradual so that teachers know, first of all, what are competency-based questions, what is competency-based education, and they are able to teach children, they are able to adapt their teaching pedagogies in such a way that they are able to teach children and students can answer these competency-based questions, and that is why this gradual change. This is mandated by National Education Policy 2020, which said that education should focus on skills, applications, and real-life learning. And that is why this gradual move towards competency-based education. You must have seen whatever subject you are teaching, you must have seen now there is so much of focus on reasoning, on analysis, and the conceptual clarity. So gone are the days when we used to have rote learning. हम बच्चों को कहते थे इतना learn कर लोगे, इतना लिख लोगे, तो इतने नंबर तो आ ही जाएंगे. And of course, all of us know कि बहुत नंबर आ जाते थे बच्चों के, even when it was only rote learning, and therefore the greater focus now is on reasoning, analysis, and conceptual clarity. And this is so important. Why CBSE, why NEP are saying that this change is required? This change is required because we have to prepare the students for their future. So the rote learning that children were doing earlier might not help them later on, but all these skills of reasoning, analysis, conceptual clarity, of the skills application, this is definitely going to help them in future. And that is why CBSE has been making this change gradually. Now, let us examine as to what are the key changes in the examination pattern of 2026. First of all, increased competency based questions. As I already said, now the competency based questions are up to 50%. So 40%, 50% varies from paper to paper, but every question paper would now have up to 50%, starting from 40 to 50% based competency based questions. Which, what does that mean? Which means that higher proportion of case based, data based, and source based questions. As we talked about in the previous slide also, analysis sikhana hai, reasoning sikhana hai, interpretation sikhana hai. And therefore, the proportion of these kind of questions have now increased in 2026 paper. If you have seen your sample papers, you must have realized that there are a lot of case-based, data-based, and source-based questions. This also means more real-life contextual questions across subjects, जिनको हम कई बार केस स्टडीज कह देते हैं, केस लेट्स कह देते हैं, अलग अलग टर्म्स हम यूज करते हैं, but real life contextual questions are definitely there. So in science, they are not going to simply ask you as to what does this mean. They're going to ask you एक कॉन्टेक्स्ट में कि अगर हमने यहाँ ये अप्लाई करना है तो what does that mean? So the context has been changed, although the concept that they are teaching is same, the concept that they are testing is also same, but we as teachers and of course students find it challenging because now they are contextual. And the moment we make anything contextual, it is application based, it is real life, and therefore it seems a little more challenging. Balanced mix of objective and descriptive format, not to say that earlier format has been completely done away with. As I said, change is gradual, but 50% descriptive has also been retained. Of course, depends from paper to paper, but the earlier format of the descriptive one has also been retained. Clearer marking schemes and rubrics. If you have seen the marking schemes this year, and if you compare them with the marking schemes of the last year, you will find that the marking schemes are clearer. The ambiguity is not there. The confusion is not there. Earlier, quite a few things were open to interpretation, and sometimes there were multiple answers. This year, the marking schemes as well as the rubrics, which are very, very important for the teachers, have been made more clear. Now, when rubrics and marking schemes are made clear, तो हमारे लिए क्या फायदा होता है? हमारे लिए फायदा होता है that I can tell the child that you have to follow this process, because this process also has marks. That if you're writing this much, even though your answer is incorrect, you might get some marks. So you are able to explain it to the child, to your students very clearly as to what should be the way that they should be answering the paper. So the methodology and the way becomes very important, and this is what we need to teach our children also, because बच्चे क्या करते हैं, बच्चों को लगता है ये वाला क्वेश्चन नहीं आता तो ये हमने आंसर नहीं करना, एंड दे लीव इट. तो ऐसा कोई भी ना करे, क्योंकि हमने मार्किंग स्कीम्स हमारे पास बेटर है, रूब्रिक्स हमारे पास बेटर है. वी नो व्हाट आर द थिंग्स दैट कैरीज मार्क्स, एंड आई थिंक दैट शुड आल्सो बी कम्युनिकेटेड टू द स्टूडेंट्स इन द क्लासेस. अब आप सबको पता है, these are the different kind of questions. We have been saying so much about competency based questions. So what are the competency based questions? What are the kind of questions that we get in our papers? So we have MCQs, all subjects have it. Objective type questions are there. Assertion reasoning questions are there. And most of the times we find it very difficult. Even we find it very difficult sometimes as teachers कि इसके तो 2 आंसर्स बन सकते हैं. तो उसका भी हमें भी आगे आकर एक सोल्यूशन निकालेंगे कि अगर हमें ऐसा लग रहा है that there are 2 probable solutions to this particular answer, what is the methodology that I have to follow? So as I already said, more weightage has been given to, in this year only, more weightage, and of course this is going to follow now. More weightage has been given to competency based questions, short type questions which are precision based, that is either you know the answer or you don't know the answer. Long answer type, structure and rubric based, as we just discussed in the previous slide. Case study questions. And if you would analyze your question papers, you will realize that in most of the cases, in most of the questions, there is no choice in case study questions. इसका as teacher मेरे ऊपर क्या implication है? As teacher, the implication is that I need to give a lot of practice to my students in all type of case study questions, because in short, in long answers, they are still getting choices. But in case study questions, most of the times there are, in majority of the subjects, there are no options. Data interpretation, you must have seen, if you have analyzed class 10th papers of mathematics, science, and social science, you will see that there is one question included of data interpretation as well. So this is also something that we need to take up in our classes. So what are competency-based type of questions? Application-oriented, real-life situation, analysis and reasoning, assertion and reasoning also, critical thinking, real-life situations, because I have to think about something and then apply it, rather than somebody asking me the direct meaning, the direct definition of something. Decision-making, data interpretation, source, graph, map based questions. Now, these are all the kind of questions that we have taken from sample papers of 2026, that they are trying to target these skills of the learners. That's learners are able to apply the knowledge that they have. Learners are able to analyze, they are able to reason, they're able to think critically, they're able to decide, they're able to interpret the data, and they are able to see the graph, answer the questions based on that, and of course, see the map and answer the questions based on that. Again, let me tell you, these are not going to be the direct questions. These are going to be the questions which involve some kind of analysis, which involve some kind of reasoning and critical thinking. Now, we can spend time on this. We can move very quickly. I'll just read it, and you can ask me if at all there are any questions regarding this, because these are the changes we have interpreted by studying the sample papers of this year and comparing them to the sample papers of previous years. So in languages, we have both analytical and inference-based reading passages. So even the kind of reading passages and the kind of questions that we are getting now, they are different, because analytical bhi hai and inference-based, that is, you call them open-ended, extrapolatory questions, they are also included in the reading passages. Then more application-based grammar, that is, not the direct grammar, as I said earlier also, not the direct grammar, but the application-based. Writing tasks focus on clarity, coherence, and purpose. This is more in class 12, that writing tasks are focused on clarity, that is, the points must be there, coherence must be there, and the purpose for which you are writing, the audience to which you are writing. So the answer should also be worded according to that. And I'm very sure that you would have noticed this in class 10th as well as 12th. Literature questions, sorry, with higher order thinking skills. Earlier also these used to be there, but earlier, if you remember, there used to be only one question. And we used to call it extrapolatory question, but now most of the questions are with higher order thinking skills, again, away from rote learning. Mathematics, stronger focus on competency-based and case-based questions. I'm sure you would have noticed this. Class 12th includes more real-life application problems, step reasoning emphasized. And that is why I said earlier, marking scheme and rubrics is very important. In mathematics, children, you know, what do they do is they keep on thinking about a particular question and they say, ye to nahi aata, so let's leave it. But then you need to tell them that there are marks for every step. So even if the answer is incorrect, if the earlier steps are correct and then there is a calculation mistake, still the child is going to get marks. Therefore, rubrics is very important. Data-based and graph-based questions are included. Class 10th, science, so I'm talking about science in totality now. physics, situational and numeral reasoning, graph, data interpretation, and experiment based questions. Chemistry, application based reaction mechanisms. So instead of asking the reaction directly, they are giving application based. Case studies from real industries, daily life chemistry. If you look at the past year, 3-year question papers, you will find one question like this every year. Higher ratio of competency questions that is there for all. Biology, assertion reasoning and case-based questions, diagram-based interpretation. Please remember that this is also coming. Focus on understanding processes, not memorization. Biology, for years we have been saying that the child can mug it up and get marks. So cramming here is not going to get you a lot of marks. Of course, passing marks every child can get by cramming also, but not a lot of marks. He would not be in the highest one. Then social science, source, map, and theme-based questions. New emphasis on interpreting primary sources, analyzing maps, and connecting. Last time also, I hope you remember that this question was there of analyzing maps and connecting thematic concepts across topics. Assertion reasoning and chronological reasoning. This last year in class 12 also we got this kind of chronological reasoning question, testing logical connections between statements and understanding of historical sequences. More case studies for civics, geography, and economics. Real life scenarios requiring application of concepts from multiple disciplines. Commerce, accountancy, more numericals with real case business scenarios. Competency-based application in partnership, NPO, analysis of financial statements. Business studies, caselets. So it is completely, based on cases. Caselets for management concepts, scenario-based questions to test application. Economics, data interpretation from graph, tables. Hot topics are budget, macroeconomic reasoning, national income caselets, etc. Humanities, political science, source-based and contemporary issues, emphasis on evaluating viewpoints. History, source, extract-based higher order questions, interpretation of maps, visual and artifacts. Geography, map and diagram interpretation, data-led questions linking physical and human geography. Psychology, cases, applications, and competency-based situational analysis. Applied subjects, IP, computer science, output-based questions, applied programming, data handling, logical reasoning questions. And you will be surprised, even in physical education, they have put case-based and application questions. Contemporary sports scenario has also been increased. If you look at all of this, although I have analyzed the papers and I have told you as to what are the new things that are coming up, but if I have to summarize it all, it is basically competency-based questions. It is basically real-life application and case studies that we have to do in our classes a lot. And we have to give a lot of practice to our students regarding that. So if you have one sample paper in hand and you are going to get more, so what is basically to be seen in a sample paper? First of all, I did ask teachers in my school as well as other schools that what is your reaction to the sample papers that have been received? And 80% of the teachers answered that the sample papers are very easy. The difficulty level is not up to mark. So I would like to clarify that sample paper has not been given to tell you that what is going to be the difficulty level of your paper. It basically tells you the exam blueprint, and since it is called a sample paper, it tells you the kind of questions that are going to be included. In no way can I say that if my paper is very easy, sample paper is very easy, I can expect the same in the board, or later on I would criticize that sample paper was very easy, whereas board paper is very difficult. No, it is basically to show you the kind of questions and, of course, the blueprint. So, first of all, the blueprint that has been given to you by CBSE, you have to compare that and see. आपको सबको अपने सब्जेक्ट के लिए करना चाहिए कि आप वो सैंपल पेपर्स उठाएं और देखें क्या वो उस ब्लूप्रिंट के अकॉर्डेंस में है, द ब्लूप्रिंट दैट वाज गिवन टू यू बाय सीबीएसई. दैट इज वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. Then each sample paper also includes marking schemes and model answers. So model answers, if you have to take, let me tell you, CBSE is the biggest source. For model answers, you should not only look at the marking scheme. For model answers, you should also see the last year toppers and the previous year toppers answer sheets, which are there on CBSE website. It is very important that you provide model answers to your children. It's very, very significant. When you analyze your sample paper, you will also see a very, very clear distribution of competencies that is going to help you to prepare your students. If you are able to analyze, you will be able to help your students as to how they have to prepare. Then emphasis on precision, logical flow, and conceptual clarity, of course, is there. It provides exact benchmark for teachers only in terms of rubrics, blueprint, and the structure of paper. So key shifts that I have noted, and you must also note, if I am talking so much about competency based, what do I have to do? Move from content heavy teaching to conceptual teaching. So for every subject, rather than giving so much of content to every child, I have to ensure that the concept of child should be clear. Why? Because the questions are going to be the application based, real life based, assertion reasoning, whatever the kind of question is, the child has to have a conceptual clarity. Only then the child will be able to answer that. So let's not burden the children with so many books, rather provide them with conceptual clarity. From rote answers to applied reasoning. And this change has to first of all come in our own mindsets. That is the mindsets of the teachers. Only then we will be able to bring this change in our learner also, that we have to make a move from rote learning to applied reasoning. This is so very important. We do not have a lot of direct questions now. These are multi-layered questions. If you have a multi-layered question, you need to have conceptual clarity. You need to understand the question very well. Only then you will be able to apply yourself, reason, analyze, and then you will be able to answer. So immediately, as I said, multi-layered questions, two things that comes to forefront. One is conceptual clarity, and secondly, I hope teachers will identify with me when I'm saying that having the patience to understand the questions. Because what children generally do is they read two words or they read a part of the question and they assume so many things, because this is what happened in sample paper or XYZ paper that I had attempted. So let me answer like that. So the child has to be taught by you people to read the multi-layered question properly and then analyze, then apply the concept, and then give the answer. And of course, all of this lead from teacher-driven class to not student-led class, student thinking-led class, wherein we are forcing children to think. And dear colleagues, it's still not late. It's still not late. I cannot say कि मैंने तो पूरे साल ऐसा नहीं पढ़ाया तो अब क्या. वो भी मैं बात करूंगी कि अब हम क्या कर सकते हैं. But in a nutshell, I'll just tell you कि हम अब क्या कर सकते हैं. We can give these kind of questions in the class and try to solve them together. When we are doing all of this, we are making a shift from content heavy teaching to conceptual teaching, from rote learning to applied reasoning, from direct questions to multi-layered questions, and very importantly, from a teacher-driven class to a student thinking-led class. So, implementation strategy, as I said, we are going to talk about it. So what are teachers supposed to do? As a teacher, मैंने आपको बता दिया, competency based आ गया, ये आ गया, वो आ गया. तो of course the question is कि मुझे करना क्या है? So first of all, we have to integrate competency based questions into our daily teaching. That's very important. We have to use real life examples, scenarios, and visuals because ultimately they are going to be assessed on the same. Now, when I am giving a real life example or a scenario or a visual, it would definitely not be same as what is going to finally come into the assessment. But how this is going to help? This is going to help because children would learn how to analyze, children would learn how to reason, they will learn how to apply. And very important is the last word. Practice case-based and data-based questions weekly. Continuously, if you do it over time, only then children will start getting the hang of it. It is not that if you give one worksheet or two worksheets and then later on we can say, yes, we had practiced. No, it has to be done in continuation. So give less questions. If you, for example, if you have only 100 questions with you or you have 50 questions with you, do 5 each week. When you are doing 5 each week, you are preparing children to do it every time and you are preparing children to think critically, think in an analytical manner, which has to be done over a period of time. It cannot be solved with one practice sheet. Strengthen reading comprehension across subjects. सबसे बड़ी हम कई बारी गलती करते हैं कि हम सोचते हैं reading comprehension is only for languages. No. When you are taking your NCERT text, the child should be able to comprehend each and every concept, each and every term, and should be able to read and understand. If you have not attained that till now, I request you to please endeavor to attain it in next 20 days कि हम क्लास में उसको रीडिंग करा के हम बच्चे को रीडिंग करा के we should ensure that the child has been able to understand what is written in the NCERT book. Because if comprehension is not there, then how would application come? How would they be able to solve real life scenarios? Assessment pattern preparation in school. Redesign periodic test, so you can include more kind of competency based kind of questions. Introduce question banks with competency variety. This we should do for this year board also. All of us can prepare question banks. When you are preparing question banks, wherever you are taking those question banks, my only request is that before giving the question bank blindly to the children, we must go through the questions ourselves. As a teacher, I should be clear about the quality of the question that I am giving. Because certain books have pathetic competency-based questions, which are actually not competency-based questions. So just because I have to give a question bank, I should not be handling my child any kind of question. So as I said, quality over quantity. तो आप qualitative questions दीजिए. ऐसा नहीं है that I have to give 500 questions. Even 50 good questions will be better than 500 bad questions. So question banks दीजिए, but every teacher must go through the questions himself or herself before giving it to the children. Use marking schemes. ये एक बहुत important tool है जो हम कई बारी use नहीं कर पाते. So each one of us should use marking schemes, rubrics that has been provided to us to train students on what is expected, right? I have taught you everything, but now how do you have to word it? How do you have to write it? How do you have to present it? And what are the evaluators' expectations from you? That is very, very important. So use marking schemes to train students. Conduct mock exams based on sample papers. Now, these sample papers, of course, children will also be having. So you can have these sample papers also. Sometimes we feel that this is with everyone, so it will not serve any purpose. That never happens. Every examination serves a purpose. In our school, I have been telling teachers that even if the students are not prepared, especially the board classes, even if the children are not prepared, we give them open book test. That you come and write the examination. It's all right if you are not prepared. We'll give you the book also. So they bring their own books and they open the books and they write down the answer. If your children are also not prepared, please do that. At least child will know where is the answer. At least child would know how to write the answer. So it's not only the cramming part that we are assessing. We are assessing so many things. And we must introduce open book test also in earlier classes. In primary and middle, we should introduce, because we have to train students for competency-based examinations. So 3 things that all of us can immediately implement. Number 1 is to introduce question banks. Second, to use marking schemes. And third, to conduct mock examinations. This is going to help children prepare for boards. Now, since today's session, we are extensively talking about the sample papers. So we can use our sample papers to identify learning gaps. As I said in the previous slide, we can give them mock examination. जब मैंने mock examination दे दिया, तो मेरा purpose always should not be only to assess the child. As a teacher, I also have to take certain learnings. So what we generally do at our own school also, we try to find out as to which question or which questions have not been able to answer by the children. So majority of the class, let's say question number 7, they have not been able to answer. So 80% of the class has answered question number 7 incorrectly. Then what do I have to do? I have to see 2 things. First of all, is the conceptual clarity not there? जो कंसेप्ट क्वेश्चन नंबर 7 में था, क्या वहां पर एक लर्निंग गैप है? और द अदर प्रॉब्लम कुड बी विद द लैंग्वेज ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. Was the language of the question ambiguous? वो टीचर के लिए लर्निंग है कि yes, it was ambiguous. Next time onwards, I'm going to make it clear. Or the language of the question was multi-layered and therefore the child was not able to understand. Then the learning gap is that the child is not able to comprehend the question. So we should all analyze our assessments in such a manner, especially now when you're going to conduct your pre-boards and mock examination. Please identify the learning gaps. वो आपकी teaching को ज़्यादा efficacious बनाएगा, because then you know what are the issues I have to address. So use these sample papers to identify learning gaps. Use these sample papers to model answers, to show the model answers and demonstrate expected formats. This is also very important. I am not only talking about the format of certain things that are written in the examination, even the format of how the answers should be written. That is also very important. So you must show the previous answer sheets and the sample papers marking scheme to show as to what is expected from you, and this is the format in which you should be answering, and model answers should also be shown to the through the children. Teach, I'm so sorry, I'm also under the weather. Teach step marking and structured presentation. Previously also we talked about it. Rubrics is very important. Marking scheme is very important. Therefore, step marking is also very important, and the presentation. No, I always tell my children in the school that when you are eating at home, right? When you are eating a homemade meal, then what happens is mama makes delicious khana, but it is not presented in such a beautiful way, right? Similarly, when you are writing in school, you are giving answers to the teacher, but then you do not present it very beautifully. But then someday when an outsider comes, so same dal sabzi that mama makes every day, it is served on a platter, it is served very beautifully. So that is what we have to do for the outside evaluators also, that I have to give a structured presentation and I have to serve it very beautifully. Each one of us knows that nobody spends more than 20 minutes on one answer sheet. So if an evaluator is not having more than 20 minutes to evaluate one answer sheet, everything has to be served to him or her on a platter. So structured presentation is also very, very significant. Help students understand time management. So when you're conducting these sample papers, then they would understand the time management. If you feel your children are not ready for a 3-hour paper yet, or they do not have time, or they do not have willingness, start giving them 1-hour question papers. Do not change the format. जो भी आपको लगता है आपके सब्जेक्ट में these many questions should be done in 1 hour, give them those many questions. But very important to teach time management to children. Create customized worksheets aligned with the pattern. ऐसा ना हो that whatever we are teaching is not being tested. So your worksheets have to be aligned with the pattern of sample papers. You have good sample papers with you, and you can create more customized worksheets aligning with the pattern, so that children have ample practice in the kind of questions that are mentioned there. So common weak areas in students. If you also analyze, as I said, since we analyze all the papers, not only the pre-board papers, we started from the very beginning. We analyze all 70-80 marks question papers and answer sheets. So these are the general findings over the years that we have found out. Number one, very important, misinterpretation of case-based question. So students struggle to extract relevant information from case studies and apply concepts correctly. So this is the fault of teacher also to a lot extent, because if I keep on doing it weekly and if I keep on doing it repeatedly, children will understand the manner in which they have to extract the relevant information and then apply themselves. Otherwise, what happens is, sometimes they do not read, sometimes they misinterpret, and even when they are aware of the concepts, they are not able to apply it. So I have to practice a lot of case-based questions. Second, weak analytical reading, difficulty in comprehending complex passages and identifying key information. That also has to be taught over a period of time. Now also, with repeated practice, with continuous practice, we can definitely teach them analytical reading. Inadequate conceptual depth, of course, when it is a teacher-led class, when focus is more on cramming, then this happens, that there is more of surface level understanding without grasping the underlying principles. In that case, your student will not be able to answer most of the competency-based questions. Poor presentation in long answers. I just said every evaluator has 20 minutes. And nobody spends more than 20 minutes on one answer sheet. So if I have poor presentation, there is lack of clarity, there is lack of structure, stepwise progression is not there in detailed responses. It is human nature that I will not be able to spend a lot of time on that particular answer. Sorry. If I do not spend a lot of time, so even if the value points are there, even if the content points are there, child might not get as many marks as he would get if the answer is structured, if the answer is clear. So long answer presentation also needs to be taught. And limited practice of competency questions. As I go to different schools to take CBSE sessions, I find that it is more of a hesitation on the teacher part to deal with competency-based questions. And I'm not blaming the teachers, because for past 20, 25 years, all the teachers have been teaching in that one particular pattern. And therefore, this change seems too much sometimes, that what are these application-based, what are these assertion reasoning. But like students, we also have to get familiar with these questions So, as I said earlier, also, we can all do these questions in group. When you are taking the students to the class, when you're taking the questions to the class, divide them into groups and let them also think. And you also sit down with them and do brainstorming, do thinking loudly, and try to answer the question. It's all right. We are also human beings. It's all right if we are wrong also once or twice. In fact, sometimes it increases your respect in the eyes of the students that ma'am was wrong earlier, but today she has come back with the करेक्ट आंसर. तो मैं भी ये कर सकता हूँ. मुझे तो ऐसा लगता है कि बच्चों को भी ये हौसला मिलता है that if ma'am can also be wrong, it's okay if I am also wrong. Later on, I can also correct myself here. So limited practice नहीं होनी चाहिए, because if CBSE says 50% competency-based questions, not doing questions in the class, what is the fault of children if they are not able to answer that? So we should give them ample practice of competency-based questions. For 2026 also, it is not late. You can start now. As I said, prepare question banks and focus on quality over quantity. Teacher action plan. Strengthen concept clarity through demonstrations. Right now also you can do it. All of us must be having our remedial classes. All of us must be having our block schedules. Class 10th and 12th are still coming to school. So identify learning gaps. That is first of all our task. And then we can strengthen conceptual clarity also. Daily MCQs. I know, sounds a lot. टीचर्स को लगता है इतना कैसे कर सकते हैं कि हम एमसीक्यूज और असर्शन रीजनिंग हम रोज करवाने लग जाएं, और वीकली बेस्ड केस प्रैक्टिस जो है वो हम वीकली कराने लग जाए, केस प्रैक्टिस हम वीकली कराने लग जाए तो बहुत ज्यादा हो जाएगा. नहीं डियर टीचर्स, इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू बी टू मच. ऑल ऑफ यू are in certain groups also, your subject related groups also. Start this kind of interaction also there, that let us share the MCQs. What are the MCQs that you have prepared on this chapter? What you have prepared on that particular chapter? We can share even within the school. We must do this practice, that we must share our resources with each other. At this time, for classes 10th and 12th, if you want your students to score well, it's important that we give them 10 to 20 MCQs on a daily basis and cases on a weekly basis. If you do this, you will see that you are able to escalate your average, and they're definitely going to answer a lot better. Collaborative creation, as I said in point number 2 also, collaborative creation of departmental question banks. So we can all collaborate. It can be within the school, it can be across schools, it can be in your groups, it can be in your friend circle. But this collaboration, because now a lot of time is not there, so this collaborative creation is required. Otherwise also, even if we have time, I integrated approach to a particular chapter, to a particular concept. That is very, very important, because not only teaching that concept is important, the variety of questions that can come from there, looking at that is also very significant. Promote students' self-assessment during rubrics. And you will feel, why I am focusing so much on rubrics? I'm focusing so much on rubrics because ultimate aim is that students should be able to get marks. Until the time I do not know कि मुझे marks कहाँ मिलेंगे और मेरे marks कहाँ कटेंगे, how would I be aware of what am I writing? So you have to promote self-assessment using rubrics. So one mock paper you have checked, second mock paper or second worksheet that you have given to the children, tell them that these are the rubrics, this is the answer key. Now you check your paper yourself, and you will see whatever errors they find out, they are not going to make the same errors in the next paper. This continuation. I feel it's very important. I already said it. We have to change our mindset. We have to focus on what they think, not just what they write. So understanding the thought process is also very important. Only when you understand that, will you be able to take them into the right direction. You encourage curiosity, reasoning, and discussion. मैंने अभी कहा आप questions ले जाइए, group में बैठिए और answer कीजिए. Create an environment in your class where questioning, where exploration are valued. And teacher has to be a part of it. I cannot आप लोग group discussion करो. That is never going to happen. So you have to be a part of that environment. Use formative assessments meaningfully, because when I am conducting formative assessment, again and again, CBSE and NCRT have been saying that the purpose of conducting formative assessment is to gauge the learning gaps. So, I have to identify the areas, I have to identify the learning gaps so that the children can improve further and I can mold my teaching accordingly. Again, important, shift from teaching the chapter to teaching the competency. Move beyond content coverage to skill development and application. As we said previously also, when we are taking a concept, there should be multiple perspectives to that concept. Let's try for the skill development, for the application, for real life scenario. Let assertion reasoning. Let's try everything rather than merely teaching the content part of it. So what are the tools and resources that are available with you? I am not sure if everybody has visited that. If you haven't, this is the time you must do it. CBSE sample papers, please take them from the official website. These are the most authentic, most updated source. Marking schemes, I have been focusing so much, and marking schemes are very, very important. We need to show children what are the marking schemes and what are the detailed rubrics. Because if I have to be assessed, I should know what are the parameters on which I am being assessed. CBSE circulars on competency-based education. If you have still not gone through them, you must read them to know more about what is basically competency-based education. School-created question banks. If you have not started till now, last year भी नहीं बनाया, इस साल भी नहीं बनाया, तो अब बनाइए. Over the years, you will feel it is such a rich resource that you will be able to create on your own. But these should be customized resources. It should not be that whatever I prepared last year, I give to the students this year as well. No, that will never work because students change. These are the human beings with whom you are dealing. So you cannot give them the same things. And of course, CBSE pattern is also changing. So you need to revisit. Earlier also I said there are thousands of sources from which you can get the question bank. But it is very important to go through the questions yourself before you give the question bank to the children. Quality over quantity. Peer review sessions for paper setting. टीचर्स को भी हेल्प की जरूरत होती है, टीचर्स को भी रिव्यू की जरूरत होती है. सो व्हाई नॉट शेयर योर क्वेश्चन पेपर विद अ peer from another school or with a peer from your school? Of course, we feel very proud कि वो तो मेरे questions चुरा लेगा. Something of the sort would happen. I think imitation is the best form of flattery. If somebody is stealing your question papers, you should be patting your back and you should be applauding yourself that I have prepared such a good question paper. But having a diverse opinion on your question paper is very significant. If you're ready for that pat on the back, be ready for the criticism also, because that is definitely going to bring a growth. Right? वो वाली जो चीजें हम दूसरों से सीखेंगे, that is definitely going to bring a growth in me as well. School level preparation strategy. Monthly competency worksheets across subjects. This, of course, you can all implement from next year. Portfolio of students' competencies. Training students in rubric-based writing. This you have to do this year as well. Rubric-based writing, showing them the answer schemes. That is very, very, very significant. Regular internal teacher development sessions, that sessions like these to have teacher development sessions. Alignment of learning plans with NEP and CBSE expectations that every school, of course, has to do. So, summary. 2026 pattern focuses on competencies, application, and reasoning. The shift emphasizes deeper understanding, not just surface level understanding, and practical application of knowledge. So, only having knowledge is not sufficient, only having the concept is not sufficient, the practical application is also required. Sample papers are the most authentic guide. As I said, not in terms of the difficulty level, but in the terms of blueprint, in the terms of competency-based questions, the weightage of competency-based questions, and very, very importantly, the assessment rubrics, the assessment pattern, the marking scheme, and the rubrics. Teacher must adapt, change their teaching and assessment style because traditional methods need to evolve to match. Give me a minute, please. I'm so sorry. Thank you. Teachers must change their teaching and assessment styles because traditional methods need to evolve to match competency-based requirements. And early preparation, and I would say done in continuation, ensures student success. Starting now gives students time to develop necessary skills and confidence. As I said earlier also, this is not late. We still have a lot of time on our hands. We still can train our children in the competency-based kind of questions. We still can share rubrics with them. We can still give them mock papers. We still can give them 10 to 20 MCQs every day and ensure that they are well equipped to answer these kind of questions in the exam. So since I'm not able to see all of you, I'll come to it a little later so I can take up your questions, whatever are the suggestions. And of course, I would like to hear your best practices in the classroom as well. So thank you so much for such a patient hearing, and I hope that the session has been beneficial for you. And we have to, of course, work together to make our students future ready and confident for 2026 board examinations. Thank you so much, everyone.
If anyone wants to ask anything, any question, you can ask. Viewers, if you want to ask any question from the ma'am, you can ask. No issues. Thank you very much, ma'am. Thanks for the conducting so valuable and knowledgeable webinar with the help of Learning Heights. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. We are going to.
Thank you so much. Grateful to each one of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ruchika. It was very informative.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes.
Any question, ma'am? Pragati, ma'am, if you have.
So, Ms. Ruchika, I'm an educational consultant.
Right.
So, I have been longest with the IB schools, and now I am training a lot of CBSE schools.
Right.
So, whatever you have spoken, and depending on NEP 2020, if you see section 4.5, which clearly states that now the classes have to be discovery, inquiry, analytical, critical thinking, and discussion based.
Right.
So my entire process, when I'm listening to you, I think if we start a little early in the middle school, rubrics and discussion-based classrooms, discovery-based classroom, it will be easier for them to attempt questions in 10th and 12th.
I completely agree, Pragati ma'am. In fact, we have started with open book examinations in classes 4th and 5th as well. So we can start that early. And we should start that early but first of all, of course, teachers have to change their own pedagogies, the way they are conducting their classes. That has to be changed first of all. And teachers have to get comfortable with these kind of classes also.
Right, right. It is a total mind shift, a change in the mindset completely, which I have also been observing in various schools. Also, a very emphasis, kind of a change they need to understand when I'm saying student centric or student centric thinking. So, I have been trying to train teachers in a 40-minute class. You should ideally speak for maximum 15 minutes. Your plans should be so well structured that the rest of the time student is productively occupied in doing a task. For
Definitely.
them it is still coming and dictating and lecturing and leaving, and maybe by five hands or five answers there is a tendency they think the lesson is being finished, like it's conducted. However, what happens to the other 35 children in the class? So that shift is so essential. But yes, I am very happy to listen to you today that we are in the same alignment. Your entire presentation was in the same alignment. What changes we are trying to get into the schools and our teaching methods. So we can discuss and meet again online, and we can come to an alignment where we can start this training a little early for teachers
For
and
sure.
slowly, gradually start getting them into the system of student centric classes. How do they look like, feel like? How do they become into discussion, inquiry based? We can work a lot on that.
Pragati
Yes.
ma'am, do you have my
Yeah.
my number?
Um, I think so. Your number is the same number on the group where you have been sending that messages. I think it's
Yes,
the same
ma'am.
number.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. So can you
Yes.
please call me after this meeting?
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
please,
I'll call
please.
you. And thank you, Ms. Ruchika. It was an eye opening. I'm so happy to see this. That, now I'll also train my schools and my teachers in the similar manner because I'm usually training from third to eighth.
Right. Thank you so much,
So
Pragati.
thank you so much. Thank you.